Hey everybody, welcome to the astrological highlights for October 23rd through the 31st. I know that's a little bit more than a week's long, but I'm trying to get us back on track to do bi-weeklies by November. So I'm just taking us through till the end of the month from here. So if this is your first time joining us, welcome. Hi, thanks for being here. This is all done in tropical astrology, and all the times that I mention are in Pacific time. So that way you know how to adjust for your time zone. So I just still don't have time to get into doing separate astrology for sidereal. That is a plan for next year, but it's just not on the horizon quite yet. All right, so let's get into it. We're starting out with this first day on October 23rd. It's a Monday. I really like starting out the beginning of the week this way, I gotta say. Let's first start with the fact that we have the sun, which is ingressing into Scorpio. So welcome to Scorpio season. And as soon as the sun enters Scorpio, you look at that at 0 degrees, right? And we have that immediately. It's going to be in a trine with Saturn, 0 degrees. So we see right there. I don't know why this keeps on doing this erasing thing on its own. I think there's a glitch with the actual with the app itself. I'm not really sure why it's doing that. So anyhow, so we have this trine, right? And we'll be getting these trine vibes between the sun and Saturn into the following day as well. So you can consider this the 23rd into the 24th, right? I like a good sun trine Saturn. It gives vibes like centered, clear, mature, measured decisions and actions, right? So it just feels healthy and strong. To me, it feels more balanced, even though balanced isn't necessarily a key word that I would particularly associate with either of these necessarily, but it gives off that kind of feeling. Now, let's add to that the sun being in Scorpio, right? That adds another a layer of flavor. There's more depth of flavor there. And I think we get access to some other interesting gifts. So Scorpio and Saturn have this ability to be about integrity. I mean, they go about it in different ways, but they both have this kind of piece about integrity about them, right? And Scorpio's deep penetrative quality allows us to get the clarity we're looking for and to get to the bottom of things, right? To understand the deeper layers and patterns in a given area of our life. And with that Saturnian sturdy maturity, it feels like it could kind of steady us. Like it can kind of give us this sturdiness with whatever truths we uncover, whatever truths we find, which I think is really useful. I mean, sometimes the truths that we find are a relief, right? And other times the truths that we uncover are challenging and can really shake us sometimes to our core, to our roots, to our most sensitive places. And if we have that sturdying quality, that mature kind of quality that comes with Saturn, the gift of Saturn, remember, because we're talking about a trine, that is a friendly aspect between them, right? They are working together with the best parts of themselves, right? And so it feels assistive. It feels like it's grounding to help us hold tight and maybe even walk with our head held high and handle situations with grace if they feel challenging for us, and maybe, perhaps, right? I will say that also because we have Mars and Mercury also being in Scorpio right here. So let me just make a little room here. So because we also have Mars and Mercury being in Scorpio, they add some flavor to the pot as well. Look at how close Mercury is to the sun. I think that influences and affects the way that we're thinking, processing details, and also speaking, right? And it's very close to Mars there, so of course that's an influence, right? So you can probably expect direct communication, like no mincing words and getting to the point. And that can feel cutting if you're not prepared to handle it, right? But hey, I mean, I don't know about you, I I would rather have the truth than not have the truth. That's just my style. I always say don't ask unless you want to know, and I live by that. Sometimes I've thought that I was prepared to know, and I thought I had like steeled myself for any possible blowback, and I was incorrect. I misjudged how ready I was to hear the truth, and still I'm always happier to know that in the end I had the truth than not have the truth about any particular situation, right? And that's like, knowing the truth doesn't have to be bad. That can be something that really like clears things up. Like we can go, it can be like the friend who is tells you that you've got like a stain on your butt from when you were just sitting on a wall or something and nobody else is telling you, right? So sometimes it can just be a relief, and you can feel glad that somebody has given you the straight truth, and you just don't have a bunch of yes people around you, but you have someone who's willing to be that friend, that honest person with you. And in conversations, it can feel nice to have that also, to have those kinds of conversations, whether you're being the person on the receiving end or the one who is giving. So again, your chart will show you which areas you're going to see this playing out in more, right? Again, I say this a lot. I say it also for any people who are like new to being here, because I noticed I just, got a couple new subscribers. So you want to check out which areas of your chart are the houses that these signs occupy, right? So you want to look at whole sign houses. There's a reason I specifically say for looking at events and how they unfold in your life to look at whole sign. There are, I think, other reasons to use other systems, but you want to pull up your whole sign house and you want to take a look at where is this in your chart? Where are these signs in your chart, right? Which house does it occupy? And then you can do a quick Google search. What does the first house mean? What does the fifth house mean, right? In this example, right? This is like not somebody's actual chart, right? But you can look at this as an example, right? So that's just going to give you more information, right? But anyway, regardless of where it's hanging out, like let's say this is your chart and it's hanging out in your first and your fifth house, right? Like I also want to say that you don't have to think, oh, now I'm limited to that and I can't tap into this in any other way. You can tap into this energy and you can utilize it in other areas than just the, Pisces, Scorpio areas of your chart. You can just tap into the energy that's happening energetically and say like, okay, I'm going to go have whatever. Maybe you have like a work conversation that needs to be had, or you have like something with your parents or your family, or you have a relationship thing that you need to discuss, right? So you can tap into this. I just want to say like, the personalization maybe shows you where you might be feeling it more, or you might be feel pulled towards that more. However, that doesn't mean you can't tap into it in other ways. All right, let's get into the big event, which is the next one, which is the last eclipse of 2023. Thank all the gods or whoever you believe in. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so here we are, October 28th. Which is a Saturday, and we are at the last eclipse for this year. So for this year, they happen, the 2 eclipse seasons every year. Glad to be wrapping this one up. This is a lunar eclipse with the North Node in Taurus, and it's the last Taurus eclipse that we're going to see for quite some time, right? It's wrapping up an approximate 2-year story with the themes that are happening for wherever this is in your chart. So you want to take a look at where Taurus and where Scorpio occupy in your chart. You want to look at the houses that will tell you something about the topics and the themes that have been going on that you've been working with in terms of releasing and activating, letting go and receiving, like beginnings and endings, things of that nature. And you want to see like where that's actually happening in your chart to give you an idea of what's been going on. So you can kind of wrap that up mentally, right? Get some closure. And it's not, it's not going out quietly. It's not like this is like a very tame eclipse, right? So we have a lot to talk about. Not only that, it's on Saturday, as you can see here, right? And, it's the Halloween weekend, even though it's not Halloween. Usually the weekend is when people have all their parties. And so, this is Halloween weekend. This is when we're going to have all the parties. So it should be pretty interesting, right? If you are on the West Coast, so Pacific time, the eclipse itself will start around 5:40, peak at 5:42, finish off at 6:26 So adjust for your time zone. Obviously, it's not going to be visible to everyone. So, on the West Coast, yes, the sun is setting earlier. Might get to see it. I'm not really sure how much of it we're going to be able to see, like how noticeable it's going to be. So, but just to say that. So you can always Google, your area and what time is the eclipse in, and then name your area in Google and you'll be able to find that, right? So the full moon, however, that is happening at 1:24 Pacific, and that's what I actually have this chart set out for. So again, adjust for your time zone. So like this last eclipse that we just had in Libra on the 14th, this eclipse is also ruled by Venus, right? Taurus is ruled by Venus that is hanging out over here, right? And there are a few things that I want to mention that connect things. Like, I totally feel like, what is that meme? I don't know how to say it. It's like this guy who has the crazy eyes and he's got a board with like yarn going crisscross and like trying to explain something to people. That's what I feel like I do sometimes with astrology, where I'm just like, but then it crosses over here and then it crosses over there. So that's what this eclipse is going to sound like to some of you. So keep that meme in mind. That's essentially what I'm doing here, right? So Venus is in a sign-based trine to this full moon eclipse and also Jupiter and Uranus. So a sign-based trine means not an exact, like, these are the degrees, right? Just a little bit of astrology for you guys. This is the degrees and this is the sign, right? So sometimes you might have something that is in an exact degree to another like planet, for instance, right? Like, actually, let's erase that. Let's take a look at here. We're going to talk about this, but you see 11. That's a degree-based aspect, right? When we're looking at a sign aspect, we're looking at this whole pie slice that is also connected to this other whole pie slice, right? And they're in this trine aspect, which is a friendly aspect, right? So I think it's worth mentioning that. She's also going to be in a sign-based, again, not a degree-based, but a sign-based sextile over to Scorpio. So she's going to be doing another friendly aspect over to these areas, which has Mercury, Mars, the sun, right? So we're going to get into that, so don't worry about that. But I'm mentioning this for a reason, right? So this is all kind of building up. Now, on top of this, she is approaching a trine with Uranus, but that is not going to be exact until Halloween. The reason I'm mentioning it now is because they're only 3 degrees away, right? So 3 degrees away. And that's, you can start to feel, usually, and I've said this before, so if you're first time joining me with this, like with aspects that are building, when we get to that 3 degree, so I had a phone call interrupt. Sorry. So if it's your first time joining me, if we get to that 3 degree mark before something is exact, there is this buildup that we start to feel. Like, that's why people can talk about something where they're like, oh, the full moon was on this day. I was kind of feeling these energies more like the day before. Or if you listen to an astrologer talk about a certain transit, you might go, oh, that's kind of what I was feeling or seeing in my life 2 days before, right? It's because sometimes that buildup, it's kind of like that more pressurized point, and we start to really feel it more, see the themes more. When it's exact, we're already in it. It's like you're already inside of the storm, but like, good or bad, you're already in it. So that's like what it is, right? So, all right, so coming back to this, let me just kind of, I'm gonna erase this here because I know that I'm gonna be talking in this area. So anyway, so we have this trine that is forming between Venus and Uranus that is going to be exact on Halloween, right? So there's, just bookmark that because we're going to actually talk about Halloween. So bookmark that. I feel like this is going to be tied into the story that's building up to the 31st and the astrology of today. That's my feeling about it. So she's also in a wide opposition by degree with Neptune down here. It is still an opposition, but it's a wide opposition. And I feel like this plays a part because with Venus opposing Neptune, I question whether we're really going to be able to perceive people, situations, or connections really all that clearly, right? This is like the rose-colored glasses, or like maybe the beer goggles or the cocktail goggles, because it's the weekend, it's the Halloween weekend, people are partying, whatever. Just seeing things inaccurately, right? So as much as Venus might want the details of things to be really clear because she's hanging out in Virgo, right? As much as she might want that, she might not really get that. She might think she's getting the details, search for the details, but like kind of be fuzzy or think she's seeing things clearly when she's not, right? So insert she for you. So, because we're talking about the planet energies, right? So we also, on top of that, we also have some serious opposition energy that is going on between the planets and the luminaries in Taurus and in Scorpio, right? So we have like some serious, I'm going to erase this here. I don't know why my app keeps doing this. I got to figure it out. So we have some serious opposition that is happening between these two right here. As you can see, all of those red lines that are there. And you can see my app acting up, which is really annoying. Anyway, so we have all this opposition. And you can look to, again, those places in your chart to have an idea of where you might be experiencing this tension-like tug of war that's going on. But Mars and Mercury are conjunct, right? So you see them right here. If you look in your upper left-hand area of your screen, you see Mars and Mercury that are conjunct, right? They're 1 degree away, which they will be exact later in the day. So just keep that in mind. But they're conjunct and they're right next to the sun. So they're all opposing over here. They're all opposing the moon and Jupiter, right? So let's start to break this down. And I feel like it's important to break this down, not just because of being like an astro nerd, but also because I think it's relevant. So starting with this conjunction between Mars and Mercury in Scorpio. Now, I mentioned this on the last chart, but this is very like verbally cutting to the heart of the matter, right? It's direct and to the point in a strategic way, though, right? This is like the covert, stealthy ninja that waits for the right moment and then executes with precision. Insert B-roll of like a ninja with precision. So just to give you the view, right? Again, sorry, you guys. I'm definitely planning to get better at editing so I can make these more interactive, but here's where we are for the time being. So and that kind of precision, right, that kind of execution can be really beneficial depending on how that power is wielded and whether you're on the receiving or the delivering end, right? So how that goes, right? So take that, now add another, it's like building layers of soup, right? Like where you're making soup over hours, right? You're building in another layer. That's another layer that we're building into this. So keep that in mind. All right, so they're opposing this benefic right here, right? The greater benefic, Jupiter. And it's in the other benefic's home. It's in Venus's home. So these are the two benefics, right? And even though Venus is at her fall, it's like the worst place for her to be is in Virgo. I think she's still, like, because she can see and she is in a friendly sign-based aspect that she's like able to help a little bit. She can kind of lend a little help, right? A little backup. And also we have this moon that is in Taurus, and the moon is exalted in Taurus, which means like it is the bestest place for the moon to be. It does the best here, right? So, and the moon, as you see it's at 5 degrees, it's actually going to, as the night progresses, it's going to move into an exact conjunction to the same exact degree, 11 degrees, as it is with Jupiter right there. So they're moving together. And I'll explain what that means in a moment, but like when they're in an exact point where they're both at 11 degrees, we're going to have the oppositions be in 11 degrees all around. So let me just, like, because I didn't pull a chart for that, let me just give you a visual for this. I want you to, like, not have things in the way so that you can see this. Because I don't know. Like I said, I don't have any like B-roll or stuff like that. So I think it's just helpful to see. So later on, we're going to have the moon at, here we go. Yeah, the moon at 11 degrees, right? Jupiter's already going to still be at 11 degrees. We already have Mars at 11 degrees. And Mercury is going to come to 11 degrees, right? So they're all going to be at 11 degrees. So these two will be at 11 degrees right here. And then these two will be at 11 degrees right here. So they will be in exact oppositions. Exact, right? So we're not talking about something that's like, they're kind of coming close and not, no, they reach exact. So, you know, that's going to happen later in the evening. So that'll be happening around like 11, it was like a few minutes before 11:30 p.m. on the West Coast. So just slightly after last call for the East Coast. I'm just laughing because I'm thinking of all this like scenarios and stories that I could see playing out. But so I think that we have 3 major stories that are building up here, right? So we've got like 3 major overarching stories, right? We've got the eclipse, of course. That's the main show. But then we also have the full moon happening a little bit earlier, right? Which of course is part of the eclipse, but it's happening earlier. And then we have these oppositions that I just laid out. So let's go back to the oppositions for a moment. You know, I'm almost through here. Bear with me, right? I think this is important because I think that people will hear this and then they'll be out and about in their evening and go, hold on, didn't Nonamae say this? Oh my God, there it is. It's happening right there, right? So back to the oppositions. So an exalted moon with Jupiter that we have down here in Taurus, I think it eases some of the tensions of the day. I mean, normally just the moon and Jupiter is just so generous and it feels good, like it's a feel-good energy. It adds like delights that come from Taurus, and I would just want to bask in this energy all day, all night, right? Like it can just feel so uplifting and comfy and optimistic and safe and delightfully delicious. Sounds like, for whatever reason, it reminds me of like a magically delicious. That's what it was. It was like an old cereal. Anyway, so yeah, so it can feel all kinds of amazing ways if it were just on its own. But this is in opposition to this Mercury, Mars going on over here in Scorpio. So I think that it does the best that it can. Like these two are like, we're doing the best that we can. We're trying to help out. And how can we help? We're trying to do the best we can to smooth it all over. It reminds me of kind of someone trying to mediate when tempers or words are just like flame up and they flare up and we can be caught in the middle or on either side. So kind of imagining yourself like in this center point of these two in opposition, and you're kind of like, you know, one part of you is just like, hey, I totally get and see your side. Can't we all just understand and be good and let's just have a good time and enjoy the delights of the evening? And the other side is just like, fuck that, I've got shit to say. And you're just like, what that person meant to say is like I think what they're trying to say is that they don't appreciate the way that you did this. So it's kind of like somebody standing in between the two of them and trying to mediate in that way, right? You know, and as always, as I've been saying, like, check out where this is happening in your personal chart, because then you'll have a better idea of where you can expect to see it for you personally, right? But you're probably going to see examples of this out in the world. Okay, so a couple more things and then we're done with this. Let me just change colors. I feel like I need to change colors. Okay, so one of the things that I find kind of raised an eyebrow for me, and that I thought was interesting, is just see Lilith right here, right? Is in trine to Uranus over here. So they are in a trine. And it is starting up, but it will be by degree later in the day, right? Remember this chart that I pulled was for 1:24 p.m., so this will be later in the day. I mean, these two, these two rebellious hellions on the same page, because remember, a trine is a friendly aspect. They're taking the best parts of themselves and bringing them forward and working together in the best possible way, right? So the two of them running amok could really be like fun chaos, right? In one sense. And like also, I would be remiss if I didn't say it could also be like the best parts of liberation and activism and wanting to rearrange established systems or outdated systems for the benefit of the underdogs or the marginalized, you know, in that or the misfits, right, in that kind of way, and what they believe it should be, you know, or to disrupt it in some way because it's not fair, right, in some way. So I'm curious about how that will look or feel. And, you know, again, the best parts of these two coming together is kind of it's my kind of magic, it's my kind of mischief. I really like that vibe. So I think that on a personal level, for socially, you know, on this weekend with everything going on, it could just be an added inflammatory piece that could make things just bombastic and outrageous and like over the top. And it can also be people running with that energy that don't normally get to, and maybe taking it a little too far in terms of like chaos and mischief. And I also think it could be maybe we see people standing up for each other in the world, on the world stage. So I'm very curious to see how this plays out. And speaking of the world stage, another interesting thing to note before we wrap with this day is that the path of this eclipse is actually going to be going through, and so when I say this, the path of the eclipse, when it passes over certain regions in the world, we tend to see that there is more activation happening that is related to the alignments, right, the transits in those areas, right? So this eclipse, the pathway is actually going through East Africa, parts of the Middle East, and through Russia. So that's super interesting to me, right? Just like with all the tension, the war, etc., that we know is going on in these regions, I really wonder what we might see play out there. I mean, it's already just been so long, so much devastation, so many losses. And regardless of your opinions, your political views, who you think is right, who you think is wrong, I'm not going to do that on my channel. Not doing it, right? I have very strong opinions myself. I will not do that here. This is about astrology, right? It's more to observe and to understand, like, wow, that's so interesting that this is like, we can see this playing out in this way. So I hope, I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see what happens. I just think that there have been just so much loss for everyone, for all people, for humanity, just for people, you know, humans. And that's never great for humans to have so much loss. And so I'm curious to see how this is going to work out. Now, I'm not at the level yet where I feel like I'm, you know, historian / mundane astrologer. However, I do notice and I do listen to my mentors, and it's interesting. So I think that's something to keep our eye on. Back to Halloween. which I should have been using like an orange color this whole time. How did I not use an orange color this whole time for Halloween weekend? Well, we're going to talk about things that are happening on Halloween, but locally, Halloween parties for this weekend, it could be really fun. I mean, it's going to be a lot. Like, there are going to be a lot of things that make it heightened energy. So my advice is have fun, stay safe, get Ubers, taxis, whatever, and definitely check out where this is in your chart, right? So the last chart that we're going to talk about is going to be Halloween. By the way, if you have been listening to me talk about these transits and you are really curious about understanding how the current transits are impacting specific areas of your life in your chart, or you just want to be prepared for anything significant that is on the horizon, you can now book astrology sessions with me, and you can do that by clicking on the link in the description box down below. So thank you for your time, and without any further ado, let's get back into the charts. Okay, here we are on Halloween, as you can see right here. Oops, let's see, sorry. Not sure why it's doing that. Give me 1 second. All right, I'm totally not editing that out. So we start on the 31st here. And actually, this is going to start on the 30th. So in the afternoon, like around, I think it was like something like 4:00 Pacific. So we're going to have this energy that I'm talking about from the 30th, but then also definitely the 31st, which is Halloween, right? So what are we talking about? We're looking at Venus over here, which is going to be in trine to Uranus over here, right? So we've got a friendly aspect happening between them. And man, Venus has been through she's been through squares to Uranus, so for her to finally be in a friendly aspect to Uranus, it's nice, depending on how you look at it, right? So we're going to feel this through the afternoon on the 31st. So think 30th afternoon, so Monday night, or Monday afternoon, Monday night, into Tuesday, Halloween, into the afternoon, Tuesday, and we always feel the effects a little bit longer than that, so I would just say, let's just say Halloween in general, you're going to feel this. What do I have to say about this? How do I want to put this? Well, talk about a perfect one-night stand energy. Like, this is fun and exciting and electric, right? It's just also temporary. Think about, like, Casanova gives you a kiss and then runs away and he's wearing a mask or something and you're just like, who was that masked man? Like the old comics, right? It's like that. It's like the siren who, you know, like leaves your bed like with rustled sheets and no phone number. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. Zero shame. I've had those nights. I love those nights. Those have been great nights. Would not trade in any of those memories. Those were great. I wouldn't be counting on longevity. Like if I met someone and hooked up with someone on this date, I'm not going to be like, oh, this is the person I'm going to marry someday. Just enjoy it for what it is, as long as it is, right? So those of you who are well, actually, let me say this, one more thing. It's possible, because remember I was talking about how on the eclipse on the 28th, I was talking about how there was energy building on this particular date that I was like, you know, we're starting to have Venus and Uranus are going to start to, like, they were 3 degrees away from coming into their exact aspect, their exact trine, right? But then we also had other things happening where I was just like, oh, you know, like the Lilith, you know, with the Uranus, like there were things that made me think, I was like, this looks like a lot of interesting temporary kind of energy. So it's like one possible thing that I thought would be good to mention, actually, now remembering back to when I saw that, was like, it's possible that this could be a story that started on Saturday, like on the Halloween weekend, and like maybe you have kind of like a Halloween fling, right? And it kind of like completes on this after this night, right? Kind of like for any of you who've been to Burning Man and you've heard of like playa relationship at Burning Man, it's like kind of like that. You're like the person that you meet could be like Kaiser Sose, like gone, like and this such for any of you who know that movie, it's such one of my favorite movies. But anyway, so it could be like that, right? Now, I don't want to leave any of you coupled people out. So if you are coupled, I really don't want you to think that you can't use this. Use this. Please use this. Have fun. Try new things in the ways that you connect emotionally, mentally, physically, sexually, and like, you know, in and out of the bedroom. So like play, laugh, be spontaneous. You know, and this doesn't mean you have to tie some like crazy thing. Maybe you're not into anal beads. Okay, neither am I. So like, but maybe you try it for the first time. Maybe you don't. Maybe you role play for the first time. I don't know. Get creative, have some fun, get in there, you know, get in there. So, and also just, I'm being so this energy right now. Like, I feel like I'm embodying it right now. So I'm like saying things where I'm like, in the next second, I'm thinking, should I leave that in? Maybe I should start this recording over. So anyway, it's fun. It's playful, and you don't have to be single to enjoy it. You can definitely be coupled to also enjoy it. You know, also just, you know, if you're not talking about in the bedroom with sex, it's like, okay, great. Like how do you enjoy yourselves out in the world? You know, like if it's not a Halloween party, what are you doing? Maybe you climb a rooftop that you've never climbed before together to lay on the roof and look at the stars. You know, maybe you drive out to the middle of the desert somewhere and you sit on the top of the hood and you have a picnic and play a Halloween movie. I don't know, but just something out of the ordinary, something to spice things up, something to feed into the new and different. That would be the thing. That would be, you know what, in fact, I'm going to write it here. New and different. That's the theme. New and different. Also temporary. So take advantage of the energy while you can. It's new and different and temporary, you know. Enjoy it while it lasts, kids. You know, that's all I got to say. Have a good time, have some fun, enjoy yourselves. There are some energies that obviously we talked about for the eclipse that, you know, are concerning and also could contribute to a really wild, fun time. So I think that of all of the Halloweens that I remember in recent times, I'm kind of almost like, maybe I should look into something really cool for Halloween, because this year I just have been so busy that I just haven't looked into it really. So who knows? Maybe I'll just step out. But I think that this would be one that is for the books, one that is fun, one that is memorable. Also, I think there are some things to be cautious of, obviously, from what we talked about. So, you know, be safe. Make sure that you don't take chances and check yourself. Please, everyone, check yourself. You know, I think it's just probably good life advice in general, regardless of astrology, to always ask, like, am I being the asshole here? Like, should I maybe consider myself or other people in this situation? Like, that's just good to know. So I think that's it. I hope that you have a really lovely holiday. I hope that you have a really great time, and that it produces some insights that are helpful for you, especially for those of you who are having like really prominent things happen in your Taurus region because of the astrology that is happening for the eclipse on the 28th. So I hope that feels conclusive, complete, resolved, you know, and then you get closure for anything that you need closure about. And that's it. So I will see you for the November astrology highlights. Have a very happy Halloween. Bye, guys.